Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. My second book, V.A.L.U.E.S Teams: How to Build a Culture That's Synchronized for Success, launches on May 20th. Miscommunication, misalignment, missed deadlines. Every leader knows the frustration of a team that feels more like a tug of war than a unified force. And in today's whirlwind of deadlines and demands, it's easy to lose sight of the why behind the work, leaving your team feeling disconnected and disengaged. In V.A.L.U.E.S Teams, I'm sharing my proven framework for building an engaging team culture, where shared values create stronger results and individual efforts harmonize to achieve a powerful collective momentum. It's more than just a leadership book. V.A.L.U.E.S Teams is a guide for building a workplace where everyone is aligned, engaged, and rowing in the same direction. V.A.L.U.E.S Teams launches on May 20th, 2025. Learn more at thecatchgroup.com/values teams. Welcome to this week's episode of the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you have been here a while, thank you. We're 189 episodes in our 5th season, and there's one thing I know about this community. It's that you're serious about leading with your values. You've heard me share the V.A.L.U.E.S framework, and many of you have used it to create alignment in your leadership and life. But what happens when you're ready to take that work beyond yourself? When you're ready to bring your team along for the journey? I am more than thrilled to share that my second book, V.A.L.U.E.S Teams, is launching on May 20th, 2025. It's the next step in living and leading with intention together. While Values First was all about getting clear on your own values, my new book is about creating shared alignment as a team. And in today's episode, I'm revisiting the original Values First framework, not as a beginner's guide, but as a powerful regrounding into the tools and principles that have brought you this far. Think of it as a reset before we move forward into team transformation. Today, you'll hear a refresh of the Values First framework acronym and why it still matters more than ever. You'll hear how to use boundaries and values to make better decisions, and how this framework evolves with you and with your team. And in our next episode that drops in just a few weeks, I'll be on the other side of the mic as a guest on my own show, diving deeper into Values First Teams. But for today, let's return to the roots, because the best leaders never stop realigning. Let's get started. So today I'm going to dig into the Values First framework a bit more. The model itself at its core is simple because it grounds you in your values. At every step, your values are considered because that's what's most important to you. So who is this framework for? It's for everyone. You don't have to be a leader at a big company. You can still be in school or just starting your career. Or you can be a seasoned executive already in the C-suite or running your own company. It's a framework that meets you where you are. And the framework can be easily remembered because it is an acronym and it spells out the word values. The V stands for Values First. The A stands for Audit Time. The L is for life boundaries. The U is for Uplifting Others. The E is for experiencing conflict. And the S stands for sustaining values. I've been using a version of this framework for multiple years as I've been coaching leaders. At the time, it wasn't called the Values First framework, but it essentially had the same steps in it, just named differently. Through the book writing process, I did name it Values First and came up with different step names. And while we were editing the book, Lauren and we built the acronym around it. So it had been named the Values First framework, but Lauren and I had this very circular conversation one day about naming the steps of the framework. And we wanted it to start with a baseline of your values or clarity of values. And we went around and around with it until Lauren just looked at me and then at this flip chart and said, "Oh my goodness, what about this?" And for the step one, she simply wrote out values first because that's what we start with. And that's the name of the framework. So obviously it has to be values first. And that is a moment we still laugh about. So yes, the V stands for values first, because that's where I always want you to start, with your values. In the first part of the framework, you dig into what matters most to you to set that foundation of your core values. In episode 1 of this podcast, I talk about how to find clarity in your values by answering a few open-ended prompts and then identifying themes, which will lead you towards 5 to 7 values. In the free Values First workbook, you can download that worksheet. And then you identified what living your values means to you in the I'm Living My Values 1 worksheet. And I love both of these exercises as the kind of foundation of this framework because you get clarity on what's most important to you and you define it for yourself. What one person defines as success for a value of impact could be very different for another person's definition of that same value. The next stage of the Values First framework is very eye-opening. It's called Audit Time. There are exercises within this stage of the framework to see how you're spending your time, and then you overlay your values on top of that. So where are your values showing up? Where are they not? Which ones are most important to you right now? Lots of insights can be gained here. Some opportunities for growth and some opportunities to celebrate where you are already living your values day in and day out. The next part of the Values First framework is life boundaries. Here I teach you a 3-step process to build a boundary. Think of your boundaries as a hug that you put around your values. You're wrapping up those values and you're protecting them. You're nurturing them. You're doing that by setting boundaries, keeping them, and celebrating them. Through the book and through the Values First workbook, I teach you how to build a boundary by tying it to a value, building a system around it, and then celebrating your success. This is where it may feel tough or even unattainable on some days. You'll have so many objections to putting that boundary in place. But I'll tell you, most of these are internal objections, and you may be keeping yourself from the things you really need, no one else. In the book, I talk about how to outsmart those internal and external objections and tips and tools to build and keep your boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable or hard to enforce. Listen to episode 3 of this podcast called Burnout and Boundaries for more examples. The next step of the Values First framework is uplifting others. When you start building your boundaries and living your values, others will start to take notice. They'll see the behavior change. If you're leading a team, then they will see you model that behavior. And in the book, I talk about the importance of peers, both to motivate you, but also to keep you accountable. I talk about the importance of having a close group of peers. I call it your catch crew. Who is in your catch crew? You know, the people you go to first when you want to celebrate an awesome work presentation, or your work BFF that you complain about your boss to. In episode 29 of this podcast called Peer Accountability for Growth, you can learn more about why peers are so important. The other part about uplifting others is very actionable. And it's building a culture based on your values. That can be a very tactical thing like building a rewards and recognition program to celebrate team successes, or it could be more aspirational and motivational. But you're doing the work here to show up leading with your values, and that will motivate others to do the same. Within the Values First workbook, there are multiple exercises here to use with your team to co-create the culture you want to build together. The next part of the Values First framework is experiencing conflict. And conflict will inevitably come. It's not if, but when. It may be a conflict or tension between 2 of your existing values. It may be when your values aren't being met, or if your values are in conflict with the company that you work for. It could be after a tough situation of not upholding your boundaries. Whatever the conflict, you can go back to your values first. Center back in your values. Use those to understand what is contributing to the conflict. If it's a conflict due to boundaries, you can use different exercises like the red flags and traps worksheet in your values first workbook. Or you might need to do an actor action review using a high-low exercise. In the book, I equip you with the tools you need to be prepared for conflict when it comes up and learn from it so that you can get better in the future. So you know that I'm not a one and done kind of person. I'm a continuous learner. And remember, some of my values are growth and development. So I built the framework with sustainability in mind. The last step of the process is called sustaining values. I teach you how to live your values for the long haul. And that means over time. The tools are meant to be used multiple times. So your values might change over time. They're going to evolve. One value might be more important in one season of life than in another. What success means for one value could change over time too. So I've built out an action plan for you here that you can use regularly to check in with your values and do that with your catch crew, to learn from each other, to be held accountable to each other, and to build the practice of self-reflection. And that is the values first framework. Values first, audit time, life boundaries, uplifting others, experiencing conflict, and sustaining values. This framework has changed lives. I know it has changed mine. Now it is up to you to take action on what matters most. I'd love for you to buy the Values First book, but even more, I want you to use the tools in the free Values First workbook. I want you to lead with your values, and I want you to give others permission to do the same. If you haven't downloaded it yet, go to thecatchgroup.com/valuesfirst to grab your free Values First workbook and take action towards that next step of living a life of your values. Remember, your leadership belongs here. You belong in the C-suite. I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. By leaving a review, you are helping others find this content. We will be featuring 5-star reviews on air in upcoming episodes. Editing and support for the podcast is done by S&E Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.